Hey guys, it's Chris here. And once again, I want to take a moment and shout out a Patreon member. He's not new. He's actually been a Patreon member for quite a while. And I, for some reason, forgot to give him a shout out. So a huge thank you to Anthony for sticking in there and joining the Scaredy Cat tier. I really appreciate your support and just thanks for sticking in there. And sorry it took me so long to give you a shout out. Now, if you guys are a fan of the podcast, Patreon is a great place to support the show, but also gain access to our episodes completely ad-free, starting at just $1 a month. So go on there, check out the tiers, and there's a lot of other goodies included in those tiers. Try it out, and you can cancel at any time. Visit patreon.com/unnervepodcast or click the link in the show notes. Your support, again, goes a long way to keep this podcast going, and I really appreciate it. Now on to the episode.
As I'm walking away from the campsite, I could hear someone moving behind me. Just encountering someone in this environment, something's going on here that I shouldn't be privy to.
From HV Studio, this is Unnerved. The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
Welcome back to the Unnerved Podcast. It's where normal people share their abnormal stories, and if you enjoy true stories of the strange and terrifying, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Chris Fricky. When I was a kid, my brother and I borrowed our uncle's metal detector for the day. We had a blast searching for buried treasure, and I think we may have found a hubcap, but nothing out of the ordinary. Metal detecting can be a quiet escape, listening to the soft rhythm of beeping signals beneath the soil. All around us, the ground we walk on, though calm and unassuming, sometimes hides things never meant to be found. In today's story, a detectorist named Ray went to explore a forgotten trail in San Angelo, Texas. It was supposed to be a simple day of treasure hunting, but it soon became a descent into something much darker. This is his story.
My name is Ray Tice. I'm 35 years old and born and raised in Central Texas, and went to college between 2008 and 2014 in San Angelo, Texas, which is not extremely far western Texas, but in the western part of it. I was a history major, specializing in Texas history, and When I was in college, I had the dream job of a history major. I got to work at a historical archives repository called the West Texas Collection. And I worked there from 2009 to 2014 when I had to leave college. Been pretty much an avid metal detectorist all my life, and being a history major and working in this historical archives, I had access to a lot of old maps that most people don't normally get to see, and a lot of them that you can only find in historical archives. In San Angelo, there used to be an old military fort during the Old West days. It was called Fort Concho. It was established in 1867 and abandoned in 1885, I believe. From Fort Concho was a pretty major outpost on the what was then the West Texas frontier. And so they had all these old cavalry trails. Buffalo soldiers were they headquartered there. A lot of metal detectorists would found old trail sites and even some minor battle sites and whatnot like that. Being where I was at the historical archives, I had access to old military maps from the time of the fort, actual military maps that showed these old trails and their location and whatnot. And there was one in particular that I never really heard many other metal detectors talk about metal detectors. It was south of San Angelo and on the opposite side of the South Concho River. And basically it was an old military trail that went from Fort McCavitt, Texas to Fort Concho. It was kind of tucked back in an isolated area right on the edge of a large ranch, a private property. And anyhow, nobody ever really wanted to, wade through the woods and the brush and whatnot, which wasn't like a rainforest. It was just kind of thick woods, oak trees, pecan trees, stuff like that. So anyhow, I always wanted to metal detect that trail, that part of the trail, because no one else that I knew had ever done it. I think it was around 2013. I remember I was dating the girl who would become my wife. She was at work. I had the day off, and can't remember if it was late January or early February. Brush was not thick. It was kind of just dried up and, weed, hit by winter. I didn't have to worry too much about, snakes coming out or anything like that because it was still pretty cold outside. I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to go hit up that old trail and see what I can find. I got my gear on, which I had my metal detector, a half apron with pockets on the front. And then I had a triangular-shaped shovel. The nearest parking space was maybe half a mile from where the trail was physically at. And I got all these distance from Google Earth, just researching the trail and whatnot. It's probably about mid-morning. I get to the parking lot and I, have a pair of cowboy boots on and just head into the brush. Like I said, I knew, where the trail was at, and I knew the direction from the parking lot, and I didn't have to worry about snakes or anything like that because it was still cold. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to head straight into the brush instead of following the river, then getting to the trail and turning into the brush. I probably got, probably halfway to the site when I was kind of passing through this thick cluster of trees, and 40 to 50 yards back from the river, so they would be south of the river, and I get to this 20-foot wide clearing that kind of tucked back into the trees. It's kind of like a natural clearing. And the first thing I see is cans laying on the ground. They look like, just like a can of beans without the wrapper on them, just silver. You could tell they weren't old, but you could tell someone had been there at least for, half a day or a day I'd been camping there. And so that kind of struck me as odd. I walked a little bit further into the clearing and I come across this roughly made campsite that basically was a tent made out of a blue canvas. This is like a blue canvas tarp you'd find at Ace Hardware or wherever. I remember there being some clothes. I want to say they were kind of half in the tent, half not out, not in the tent. Looking back now, it looked like female clothes, like a kind of like a female checkered shirt, like a pearl snap shirt or whatnot. I initially thought it was just a formal campsite of an illegal alien, and that's one thing they leave around is clothes. San Angelo in that area has a lot of illegal immigrants. So I was like, well, if someone's around here, I'll just mind my business, they mind theirs, About the time I'm starting to leave, keep going towards a trail, which was still back a little ways from this campsite, this guy comes out of the brush. I startled him as much as he startled me. And he was kind of a haggard-looking guy, a beard that needed to be trimmed up a little bit, and his clothes were kind of all dirty and muddy. And he kind of jumped back and he saw me, and I kind of did the same. We kind of made little idle chit-chat. He was like, hey. And I was just kind of like, hey. Just encountering someone in this environment automatically triggers a sense in me that something's going on here that I shouldn't be privy to, but had to stay calm and not show it. He asked me, he was like, hey, what are you doing back here so far back? He could see all the stuff on me, all the gear I was carrying. And I told him just a metal detectorist, and I was out looking for just kind of poking around. And he's like, well, what are you looking for? So I told him, I was like, there's this old military trail back here. And while I was kind of talking with him, the inner voice in my head said, hey, I kind of need to fib a little bit just to ensure that if this guy is a threat, that, he just kind of leaves me alone. So, I started telling about the military trails, but I told him, a lot of metal detectorists know about it. It's kind of a common place to come just for people to poke around and, not be disturbed by kids coming up and wondering what you're doing and stuff like that. When I told him that, you could tell it kind of took him aback a little bit, because he kind of started like looking, flickering his eyes somewhat. You tell he was just kind of like, oh, in his mind kind of thinking, hey, maybe I should move my camp somewhere else. Overall, seemed like a pretty nice guy that, he'd said that he and his wife had a fight, and she somewhat kind of kicked him out, and he just decided to stay in the woods for a little while. Really, the story didn't make any sense to me. I was like, man, that's kind of, roughing it a little more than I would expect after, kind of a dispute with my wife. But, I wasn't married at the time. I was engaged, but not married. I was like, well, people do their own things, and work through it in their own ways. And I kind of told him, well, man, like, keep going and whatnot, and I just wish the best for you and whatnot. The simple little conversation kind of broke a barrier he had in place. He was saying, hey, you seem like a pretty good guy, and, just don't come, metal detector around my camp. And he's asked, like, have you, looked in my tent or anything? And I told him no, and truthfully I hadn't, because I just didn't want to be that invasive, And so I told him no, I'd accidentally stepped on one of the cans because it was kind of in a high patch of grass, but that was about it. And the guy's like, well, don't come to the backside of my tents because I just used the restroom back there. I was like, hey, man, you don't have to worry about that with me. And like, I'm just going to keep heading to this trail over here. So after that, we parted ways. As I'm walking away from the campsite, I'm just like, man, it just seemed like he was kind of following me, at a distance or something, just keeping his eyes on me. And every so often, as I, getting closer to the trail, I could hear someone moving behind me.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear, It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Buick. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the Buick Certified Service Fresh Start Tire Event. Visit Buick.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only. Highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
I've been an environmentalist all my life. I say environmentalist, but, kind of grew up hunting and whatnot like that. So I could tell the difference between human footsteps and animal footsteps. Just something you develop over time into hunting and whatnot. I'm trying not to pay it any mind, just act like I'm just keeping mind to my own business, but I know that he's trailing me. I had a number of things I could have used in my defense if the need arose, a metal detector, rated shovel, whatnot. I got closer to the site and I just didn't feel right. I want a metal detector this trail because I've been, wanting to do it forever now, but I don't know if I want to do it today. Just kind of that, that spidey sense, I guess you could say, just going off. So I decided I'm not going to metal detect today because I don't know who that guy was. It's kind of weird. He had a campsite back here in the middle of nowhere. So I decided to make a hard left towards the river. If I could find like a shallow spot in the river to cross, a way to cross, I would, just so I could put the river between him and me. So that's what I did. I turned towards the river, and when I reached it, I started following it back towards the area where I parked my truck. I never saw the guy, on the way back to my truck. I still think I heard him moving around a little bit, but never saw him again. I got to my truck and load up and go home. Life goes on, and about 2 years later, my wife and I had relocated from San Angelo. I see an article in this little kind of local amateurish newspaper outlet in San Angelo that posts a lot of stuff to Facebook and their website and everything. And I'm reading through the article, and I see this headline. I can't remember the exact how it was worded, but suspect apprehended in murder of his wife. Kind of a big title, whatnot. And reading the article, and it showed a picture of the suspect who had basically murdered his wife after an argument and buried her in that area of the woods where I was metal detecting that day. And the picture was of the guy that I had met in the woods that very day. He had murdered his wife and buried her. I don't know if he had done it on the very day that I was there, but he had been on the run for about 2 years because they couldn't find him. When they apprehended him, he confessed to it all, and he led them to the burial site, apparently, and retrieved her remains. Like I said, I don't know if he had done the act that day when I was out metal detecting, but just thinking back to the campsites, how kind of nervous. I don't recall seeing any blood on him, so to say, or anything like that, but he definitely was very muddy and like he had dug a grave.
Is there any way of knowing for sure if that's the exact campsite where he did bury his wife?
Unfortunately, I don't know about that one. Yeah, that would be like probably a police report and whatnot. But I do remember reading, like I said in the article, that her body was found in that general area. Now, exactly how far back, from the campsite and whatnot like that, I don't have those details. But clearly wasn't too far back from where we were at.
Have you ever considered going back to that site?
I have actually, there's still that lingering thing. It's like, man, that trail, I know it has, it kind of has that tantalizing effect. That trail, has never been metal detected. There's no telling what you could find. But then it's kind of like, I don't know if I want to go back there or not. That was just a huge slap of reality to me as a metal detectorist. From that point onward, anytime that I go metal detecting in kind of a remote or isolated area, I always make sure I carry an actual knife with me, like an actual Bowie knife or something. Just because that whole event, man, it was pretty unnerving. And, for anyone that might be listening to your show that's into metal detecting or getting into metal detecting, the best advice I can give you after all this is, number one, make sure you know what you say in case you encounter someone. Like me, if I don't know what would have happened if I told them that, oh yeah, the trail is not really known by anybody. Always have a good line, good bluff in your head, and follow through with it if the need arises. And always make sure you carry something that you can at least use in your defense if you need to. Always make sure you're aware of what's out there, what you could encounter.
After doing some deep research to find an incident report on this story, unfortunately, neither Ray or I could track down coverage of this event. I searched the San Angelo Live Facebook page where Ray originally read the story, and I mainly saw a similar story where a husband buried his wife at a nearby speedway track. Ray confirmed that this location wasn't correct, and the picture of the husband wasn't the same man he encountered. I also reached out to the San Angelo Police Department, but they haven't replied. I searched for countless hours for additional news, audio clips, and resources, but I simply ran out of time. So if any of you would like to track down this story, please do so. Reach out to me on Instagram or comment below what you found out. In the end, Ray's story is a stark reminder to keep your wits about you, because you never know what or who you'll encounter in the woods. Thanks again for listening to Unnerved. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave a review wherever you get your podcast. And if you guys want to see photos related to each episode, check out our Instagram at unnervedpodcast. And for ad-free episodes and bonus content, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/unnervedpodcast. Until next time, take care.